Hi, Grace.
Everybody.
The only person I recognize is Grace. Where it's 6 o'clock in the morning where you are, right, Grace?
Right. Yeah.
Good morning.
Good morning. That's 10, 9.
9. There's Virginia in Montreal. Bonjour, Virginia.
Bonjour, hello.
Hello. I was on a call yesterday with 6 men. So there are places where there's like lots of men showing up in online conversation.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
Bonjour.
Bonjour, hello.
Guten Tag.
Hello.
Hello. Yeah. Good to see you all. Nice to have you here. I'm Elizabeth Debold.
And I'm Thomas Steininger.
Yeah. And we're excited to jump into this third One World Bearing Witness workshop on bearing witness to inequalities of wealth and power to bring forth a new sacred activism. That's a mouthful. And that title was developed by Alnur Ladha, who was one of the speakers in our One World Bearing Witness event, which I assume many of you were part of or signed up for or watched the videos of and so forth. So it's great. It's great to be here with you all. And maybe we could just take a minute and just come to be here together from all over the world. And I just got a message from a friend in the Philippines who said that he's got the flu and was hoping to join us, but can't. But still, we've got some good reach across at least half of the globe, which is a good thing.
And just as a question for Stephanie and Ellen, we see only your ceiling, I guess. And with Ellen, it's black. If this is what you want, it's fine. If it's not what you want, just to let you know, this is the case.
Okay, I'm on my iPad because my computer is downloading something, but as soon as my computer's free, I'll get on a camera.
Okay,
All
great.
perfect. Great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, good.
And I hope I don't sound like a broken record in these beginnings, because I usually make the same comments. I just find it always very helpful to pay consciousness, pay attention to the fact what this coming together creates in the field between us. And that it does something to see you all on screen. And I find it worth mentioning because it makes it also different. First, when we are aware of it, and second, when we are together being aware of it, because that in itself creates a field of meeting that in itself is a powerful field to work with. And that's part of the reason why I always want to mention this in the beginning, because it allows us to work from a different starting point that we are very excited about.
And I think in relationship, particularly to bearing witness to this particular context of inequalities of wealth and power, the kinds of things that we know, so the first one we did was about Mother Earth and what's happening on our planet, but the situation that we find ourselves in now as human beings is so big and so complex that that being a single person or alone in it is a very overwhelming thing. I mean, it's overwhelming anyway, but the realizing that we are together, and that we are together in our concern and in our care for this planet, and that care is rooted in consciousness, and that's the ground. And so when we see each other and we bring to mind and become aware of the fact that we are here, we are present, and there is a shared presence here, that begins to create to create a context that gives us greater depth and strength. And so just to spend a minute or two or a few seconds just to appreciate the fact that we share something. We share our care, and we're sharing the space.
There's also one thing I want to add about the term bearing witness, which particular when the things we want to bear witness to are not easy, I think it's worthwhile to be aware what bearing witness at least could mean. And what I would like to emphasize is that bearing witness means two things at once: to be conscious of the thing we are bearing witness to, and to not be reactive. Because if we are aware of something that is overwhelming, and it can be both overwhelming positive or overwhelming negative, in particular if it's overwhelming negative, there are two understandable responses. One is that we shut down and basically refuse to pay attention. And the other is that we go immediately in some kind of reactive mode of whatever, try to fix it, try to understand it, try to do something with it, just do something, just some form of reaction. And the bearing witness doesn't mean either of them. It just means being there for it. And why this is so important, I would say, is because if we are able to do that, there is the possibility that out of the openness, something different than our reaction can arise. That through our sharing witness, something can arise that does not come out of our automatic responses, but comes through our shared paying attention. And that's why I find this term, bearing witness, a very beautiful and very powerful term.
And one small addition, that bearing witness or paying attention also comes with interest, and that interest is a form of care. But it's not about taking care of something. It's about caring and being interested enough to care. And that holding space is not simply neutral or disconnected, but it's warm. And it's warm with that which is living between us right now. And I think what I'd like to do now is to start with we're going to use through this workshop. We're going to use different segments from recordings that were part of One World Bearing Witness, but also we're going to start with one that was the last Global Dialogue Lab that I did with Sabina Lichtenfels on April 6th, which I think has been posted on Facebook, so many of you may have seen it. And it was in the email, but just to set some context for what we're going to speak about, which is more of what we actually just said. But we're going to use clips. We're going to do small group work, and we're going to do whole group work in order to go deeper into bearing witness to the inequalities of wealth and power in order to bring forth a new sacred activism. And I would say that what we're going to do is a form of sacred activism, because the space between us in which we hold this has a quality to it that I would call sacred. And okay, so let me start with, let me put on the, okay. Can you see that? No.
I did walk with a group from the north of Israel, 50 people, and including some Israelis. And then we went also into the West Bank. And we were walking with a theater piece, what we called We Refuse to Be Enemies. And where we told the stories of suicide bombers and of officers, of soldiers. And it was so amazing when people really come together, which they are enemies, open a space where a real deep listening can take place. And from this pilgrimage, many people made a big transformation in their life just by facing it. And then we see how often war is built by worldviews. And not by, if there is contact, then war has a chance to be solved. Of course, this needs to happen also on a much higher level, not only on a personal level. But there is a point where, especially we as Western people, we live in such a, we have enough, we have more than enough. And I feel very often that we fear to face the impact what we have on the other side, So, and when we, for example, walk or we travel to Colombia, to a peace community there of refugees who put their weapons down, and in every family, people were killed. And just to sit there, to listen to the stories, and then to notice, wow, this is connected with our comfort zone. This is a result of how we live here in the Western world. There I feel often there is fear, that people don't fear to open the heart because they feel guilty. And if we face this point, then a healing shift can happen. And it's not about guilt, it's about readiness to shift, to bring the shift inside of ourselves.
Yeah, no, I think that's incredibly important, because it's and that shift in ourselves will lead to different action. It leads us to make different choices. But the problem is, right now we are in systems that are not, that we aren't going to change overnight.
Yeah.
And in some ways being in the West, there's also a willingness to live with paradox while doing this work, is really, or live with the fact that one is being, in a certain, to a certain level, hypocritical, and that is true, but that can be something that is like an itch that keeps one's heart open, actually, because there's a way of responding to that is by shutting down and saying I can't see this, and I don't want to see it, and there's also one that a response that leads to greater humility and a willingness to stay open for the sake of all of this. And but our feeling guilty and blocking this is not something that is going to help anything, actually.
I noticed often that I don't know whether you know Hans Debold. He wrote the book Blessed, in German gesegnete Unruhe, blessed. The word I don't know. But he speaks, the modern fascism is the indifference. And I noticed it, for example, when we were walking in the West Bank with the whole group, and we faced so much pain, so much fear in the Palestinian world. And for the Israelis walking with us, it was shaking them on a deep level, And there was a point where I noticed no one can really open the heart anymore. And they had compassion to the animals, but no more to the human beings. And then I noticed, okay, we only can open our heart if there is hope. So a deep, deep challenge and a deep task to open visions where we can direct our consciousness in the direction of transformation and hope. And I feel it for myself. For example, when there was the Gaza war, and I had this question that I have to do something, but what? If you go there, what will you do? I admire all the the medicine people, for example, who are going there and supporting the process. And we made, in the West Bank, then we invited Israelis and internationals and Palestinians, and we had a camp. And this was so touching, sitting together on the floor without any house above us, really asking what is to do. And there are so much heart-opening moments happened, yeah? Even when the bombs were flying above us, there was trust. And the trust was our common power of deep level of sharing and finding deeper sense in life, yeah.
Now that I think what you just said about hope is, I think, very, very profound, because it there, and it is related to that trust, to the trust in life itself,
Yes.
and its ultimate goodness, even no matter what, that something, that life itself is ultimately good, that
Okay. All right. Now, we'd like to break into small groups, or 2 small groups, and so that you can introduce yourselves and maybe speak about why you're here, why you're glad to be with other people here, and maybe speak about what touched you in this short video. What strikes you? What stands out for you? Does that sound good? Okay.
So again, there will be a pop-up window showing up asking you to accept to join this group, and you need to accept that in order to be transferred to the group.
You're on your way, Alan.
Another time.
Yeah.
I can't hear.
Can't hear you, Thomas.
Oops, there we go.
There you go.
Yeah. I think we are all back.
Yeah. Okay. Actually, if you could, at the bottom right of your screen, there's mute and stop video.
Bottom left.
Bottom left. Sorry, I'm left-handed. I always get them confused. Bottom left. If you could mute yourself when you're not talking, that would be great, because it keeps the noise level down. And then when you want to talk, all you have to do is unmute and you're in.
Great.
Okay.
Mute it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Perfect.
Okay, so be great to hear from you what struck you, what you were speaking about in your groups, anything that you felt was significant that you shared in your groups that you could share with everyone here. That would be terrific.
I'll say that something that popped out for me in our small group, we were 6 people, and we were all in a different country, which gave us some diversity. And I loved it when Valerie said that we know what to do when we meet each other, when we actually come to be on the same level and to encounter each other. We know what the next steps are. I guess that was in the video as well, but we know what to do. So that stood out for me. With that, I'm complete.
In our group, I think the part of the conversation that right now is with me is what bearing witness asks of us. Is so different from what is asked of us out in usual situations. So it feels as if it's asking, bearing witness asks of me everything, more than I'm not sure I have what is being asked of me to bear witness, I'm not sure I'm big enough. So it asks me to somehow be solid in a way that is not about fixing or doing, but just having more capacity. I'm not expressing it very well this time, it seemed but there's something about bearing witness and bearing witness with others in this context affords me the opportunity to reach deeper, or to allow something about who I am to come forward. So not very articulate, but it's something about what bearing witness asks of us, which is important. Thank you.
Yeah, I was struck by what you said, that it allows something of what I am to come forward. And I think this may be what Valerie was referring to, that Andrew mentioned, about how that face-to-face, in some ways, there's something about our humanness can come forward, and something essential about being human can come forward. And there's something about that is very much related to bearing witness.
And somehow being willing to be deconstructed, and then allowing something new to make me, and to bring a newness to the present moment. So it requires a certain courage in allowing who I thought I was to fall apart and discover something new between us all.
Now, Virginia, I think you hit the center point with that, allowing ourselves to be deconstructed and something new to emerge. Because I also would like to bring in that what we are doing here, we are talking about subtle activism, but we are not talking about in this configuration coming forth with the political solutions of anything. We are talking about the subtle part of it, the consciousness part of it, and the need that there needs to be a consciousness activist part to all of this in order for new answers to emerge. And I think what you are pointing to is the exactly point, to bear witness, to allow what I said before, to not come from our reactive mode. I think very much relates to your being deconstructed. Or another way to make the same point, to allow the space of not knowing to provide us with the answer. And that needs a lot of trust, and that's the whole point. That's the whole point, because if I don't have trust, I don't allow the not knowing to appear, because I need to have the answer. Because if I don't have trust, I have to have it. I have to know already. But your deconstruction is exactly the not knowing already part. That allows something between us to emerge. And to give space to that, I would say, is the central point of this subtle activism that we are talking about.
Just a second, Valerie. It's fascinating that the person I already know who I am, the world that I already know is going crazy, and it is, that things are too big to handle. All these things are what we're talking about deconstructing, and not necessarily deconstructing, because there's truth in all of it, but letting it go for a bit, bringing more space into this, coming from a different dimension, which is what Thomas was speaking about in terms of the subtle, being grounded in something more subtle, and that one is aware of, and that we see, oh, we're all in this subtle dimension together, and we're not separate in this subtle dimension together. And already that's something that we don't know, and you can't grab that. I can say that, but you can't grab that with your mind. It's something that we, again, in a sense, bear witness to. That this is a deeper something that I also know, but it's not from here. It's from a deeper place.
Valerie, you wanted.
I just wanted to share more what we said in our group. We really took from the talk of Sabine, and most of us were struck by the word also hope. And Carol really started it with the fact that for her, well, if I articulated well, the solution is. The answer is already there by the mixing with other. So it made me think now that maybe the activism we're talking about is just the fact to act, to get. And the second word which struck me personally was the contact Sabine mentioned. So if we're just being conscious that we can move to meet the other, that's where the action should be. And then once we meet the other, yes, we know what to do, because we're just human between human. And that was, for me, it made me think, I'm not articulate, I'm sorry. Because, yeah, she mentioned that we can't move if we don't have hope. We can't bear witness. We can't face the responsibility when we don't have hope. And in order to, yes, there is a need for trust. And at the same time, once we do it once, we see it's working. We see the hope, and it goes through the contact. I'm sorry, I'm not articulated, but
I think it came through.
No, I think it came through, in fact, very well, because what really struck me, what you were saying out from your conversation, is the meeting.
Yeah, it's the fact that, like, yes, it started with what Carol said, that actually we don't need any more answer once we connect. And it's connected to what we always do here. We come here to find answer. How can I help more? What should we do? What is sacred activism means? And then at the end of the experience, we just realize that we were together and we did it.
Yeah, exactly.
The answer is in the concept of contact, of meeting.
Yeah, and in the reality of meeting.
Yeah, the reality.
Because, I mean, just to try to bring it down to the very simple point, the moment I meet you, Valerie, Thomas, meet you, Valerie, I have to step out of myself. As long as I don't step out of Thomas, I don't meet there's no chance of meeting Valerie. So in fact, to really meet you, that's it. if I really mean it, it is a dangerous, or the other way, it's a trustful move. There's that if I don't have trust in our meeting, I won't have the guts to open up and meet and go beyond myself, because something in this meeting point between you and me, I have no idea what it is. I just have no idea what it is. But there, the emergence lies. Something comes out of there that I have no idea what it is. And because I don't have no idea what it is, it can be new. And it's very simple, but it's very human. And just considering as I'm talking, there's a scary part to it. It's not just, oh yeah, I do that. If I really mean it, there's a part where I see all the parts of myself that are not so sure should I really be as defenseless to meet. So I think I just very much agree with what you're saying.
And with that, we always come back to the point of vulnerability.
And it's interesting too, because in that meeting, one realizes that there's some way that we aren't separate, and it started before the meeting. that we couldn't meet if at some deeper level we weren't already together. And it's that trust that kind of takes you beyond the mind, beyond our rigid categories, that allows a meeting like that, real meeting to happen. And that's, I mean, and in some ways that's a bit of what we're practicing here, is to be present with each other in a way that allows us to recognize the truth that we start from together. Even though the world says and our minds say, no, I'm over here and you're over there, we're separate. And that's a relative truth, but there's this deeper layer that is where the meeting happens, and it's where we abide, where we live in the deepest way. And it's that we want to cultivate. Ellen, were you going to say something? Yeah.
You're still muted.
You're muted. Yeah.
You did, Evelyn.
Oh, Evelyn.
No, I didn't understand. No.
Ellen wanted to speak. Okay, you got it. Okay, thanks, Evelyn.
I just had a thought about the whole deconstructing, that without the safety, it's like the deconstructing comes from being fully present to the other, because we have to give up a part of ourselves to let the other in. But the idea of coming together is really the only platform where deconstruction can occur, because otherwise there isn't the safety to let the guard down. And so it all comes together. There were 2 deaths in my family this week, and an uncle. And so I was at 2 funerals. But we do know that when there's a death, then the whole family system kind of breaks apart and then has to reconstruct without the physical presence of the other. And so I observed that we had 2 funerals back to back, one day and one the next. And but it seems to me that the safety of all of us wanting to be this open, it's our bliss to open to the other, because we've all felt the isolation when we're just to ourselves, that this is like a dress rehearsal for life, a dress rehearsal for when we're in the outer world where this maybe isn't the norm. And because it's what we want, we can be it here, and then it gives us courage to be it, or not courage, but a template to be it in the world. And the other thing about deconstructing is the only way to let new in is to deconstruct the old, and the only way to deconstruct the old is to have the safety to let the old go. And so it all comes together, especially the safety in the space is everything.
Yeah, I very much agree that there's one word I would suggest a different word for. instead of the dress rehearsal, I would suggest this is a laboratory.
Mm.
Oh,
Because this is life already. It's not just a dress rehearsal for life.
Mm-hmm.
This is part of life, but it is it is a specific situation. So I completely agree with you. But to acknowledge,
I knew that word wasn't just right, but it was the only one I had in my head.
Yeah, sure. I just wanted to make the point because I would like to emphasize how this meeting is part of life. It's part of it is part of it already. But I agree with you. It's a very specific, also safe part of it, where we can also experiment with going somewhere where we usually don't go in our lives.
Right. Have that experience.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least have not gotten there, or not so often, however. Yeah. But I very much agree with what you're saying.
I think to move on to the next piece that we wanted to bring in, and that is a very short excerpt from Alnur Ladha, who is the executive director of an organization called The Rules. And what The Rules means is it's that we have the power to change the rules of the way the world is constructed. And they're very much an activist organization, and they are also trying to bring together spirituality, consciousness development, and a really radical kind of anarchic activism. So in this very short clip, Alnur speaks to what he sees that we need to do in order to bear witness to the inequalities of wealth and power. And he gives some flavor of what he sees as the sacred activism that's needed, the position that's needed from us in order to create a different space. So let me play that. Okay. I thought I could.
Address the core psychological, cultural, spiritual aspects at the root of this that are making us contribute to this growth culture through this consumption culture, we're going to in turn just feed the machine. And all forms of rationalizations will come. You know, I know people in ad agencies who are not bad people. They believe they are working in the creative industries, or people at the Gates Foundation or the World Bank, the sort of agents, the organs of the neoliberal system, who believe that they're working in philanthropy. And all forms of rationalization can come in when you believe growth is the goal. You know, what we're doing is we're creating jobs. What we're doing is contributing to foreign direct investment. But if you understand how the system works, and what we're doing spiritually is feeding this cancer. The fourth premise is we all live in the matrix, and contradiction is a necessary part of this transition. So especially after this last point, what happens is people will say, well, you know, I recycle, or they'll actually try to turn it around on the person reminding them these things, and go into this ad hominem space and say, well, how do you live your life? And you travel on airplanes. And the reality is that no amount of recycling or saving energy in our house or driving a Prius or any of these things are going to change the system. And it's okay for us to live in contradiction during times of transition. What is really core at this moment is that we understand resistance and renewal, as Helena Norberg-Hodge talks about, who wrote Ancient Futures. Is that if you understand the system and what's happening, you can be in resistance to that. You can be in solidarity to the social movements that are doing this work, but you can also have resistance in your own life in all sorts of small acts. Alternative communities, using alternative currencies, even the very act of gifting is a radical act, because what it's essentially doing is going against the logic of the existing system. And there's also renewal. There's creating this infrastructure for transition. And during this time, the messiness and the contradiction and the conflict, even within ourselves, is okay. You know, all of our clothes are probably made in sweatshops to a certain extent. Our Apple computers are made in the Foxconn factory in China. But what we have to do is not allow that to dishearten us, and to hold both the light and the dark simultaneously, and the conflict and the contradiction simultaneously. And what's really being called for is this non-dualistic thinking. To be able to do this work really requires us to hold all the darkness and not be afraid of it, and not say that's binary thinking, and to hold all the light and see all of the possibility.
Okay, that was quick. You can listen to Alnor's full presentation on the One World in Dialogue website, where this third ritual cycle, all the materials from that are there. But I think what basically Alnor is saying to us is something that was also part of the conversation between Sabine Lichtenfeld, who, by the way, is the co-founder of the Tamara Healing Biotope, which is a spiritual and transformational community, which she describes as an acupuncture point for a new way of living on this earth, which is something that I think is what each of us can be.
Which lives in Portugal.
It's in Portugal, and she's also a peacemaker, as you could hear from what she was relating to us. And Alnor is basically saying we're living, we are in these systems that work according to a certain logic, a logic of separation, a logic of competition, that growth is essential at all costs, no matter what it takes, a system that has certain kinds of logics that says that the cost to the environment of what doing business doesn't count, it's okay, that there are things that are built into these systems that we are all in, that we can't get out of. And I know people who try and they live for a year or two off the grid completely, but it for most of it that's not feasible. But what do we do in that space? What do we do in this transition time? How do we live? And he's saying we can resist the structures, try to resist at the deepest level the structures that create the world that we're living in, and to engage in renewal, which is finding alternative ways of being, practicing, bringing forth things that are more wholesome, and that calls us to holding both the dark and the light. And I think that that's something that's often misunderstood or difficult to understand. It's like it makes your mind go like, yeah, what does how do I do that? How do I hold the dark and the light at the same time? And the thing is that it's not a duality, really. It's not a we have the dark on one side and the light on the other. It's that we ground ourselves in the depth of wholesomeness and wholeness. That is the light, that is life. And from that place, and particularly together, we look at what's happening. And so the dark actually is something that is held within light rather than being something that's just another option. Because the light and life is not an option. It's the most profound aspect of who we are and what we're doing and what we are about as human beings.
What I really appreciate about Al-Nur, and he did this in several ways in this 4 minutes or whatever we saw him in, is the holding of contradictions. And I think this is in fact very crucial, and it's worth talking about it. And one you mentioned, what he called the resisting and the renewing, and the holding in this the dark and the light. And the other that struck me also is that we are part of this, and we cannot be perfect in this. You cannot step out of it completely. And as I understand, you have to hold two things at the same time, which seem to be contradictory. On one hand, to accept your imperfection, and on the other hand, to hold your integrity. And the key of it,
and that really seems opposite.
And that really seems opposite. But the key of it, I think that's really the key of what he's pointing to. The worst crime that you can commit is to lose your heart, to kind of dishearten. That's basically the worst crime you can commit, because if you accept, okay, we are all part of it. We are all part of the system somehow. And he brought some examples with whatever, Apple,
clothes,
and of course, for some individuals, it may be the right option to really opt out and make an example that you can really step out. I think that's a valid choice for some people, but it's not a valid choice, I think, for many people at the same time. I don't think this is realistic. But to accept that you can resist and renew at the same time, that you're part of it, that you're not perfect, but you hold, and then of course we have to talk about what this means. You hold your integrity in that. It's not just becoming an excuse. I'm not perfect, so what do you want? In order to not lose your heart. And in this, there's something very, very powerful that we have, I think, ongoingly regain all the time together, because I don't think there's a fixed answer. This is how it works. We all ongoingly have to regain and also talk about together, I guess.
And support each other.
And support what this means. And in doing that, I think a dynamic of change is opening up that is held by people who really have a heart for this, who really have an integrity for this, and have this also vulnerability to know that you have to fight for your integrity, and you have to accept that you're guilty at the same time without this letting you kind of bring down. And that seems to be quite a tall order to do this.
And I think it's made much easier by being together in it, to realize that we're not, we are not alone in this, that every sensitive, caring person on this planet in some way is grappling with this problem. And I think that this struggling to saying, I know I want the world to be different, and I know I'm part of the problem because I live in the world as it is, but that's where we all are. And that's sort of what I was referring to in the conversation with Sabina, to allow that to keep our hearts kind of sandpapered a little bit, a little bit raw, a little bit pained, because that's how we know that it's open, actually. And even in love, even in the deepest love, there's often that sense of slight pain. That's not a bad thing. It's about the desire for something completely different, the desire for real union, the desire to realize wholeness which is sort of beyond our reach. But it's that many spiritual paths speak about that unless one is a little brokenhearted, that one doesn't develop spiritually. And I think that this is part of what it is that we're where we are right now is in a place where the holding the contradiction and wanting to live a different life and knowing that we can't do that fully, perfectly, as we might like to, and even that there are things that we want our comfort, even recognizing that we can do that from a place that allows us to stay connected, and stay open, with that vulnerable soft spot, that tender spot in us that says, I see this to be true, but I am present to that. I am here together with you in seeing this. And that in itself is something that goes against, that's what Alna was saying at the very beginning, that the systems that we're in are create things like our separation and competition and so forth. And it's like our coming together in acknowledging all of this together and being present to each other in that is one way that goes against the competition and separation that the whole system is based on. So what we'd like to do is to break you again into small groups and to explore this together. And yeah, you got the group set up? Okay. So you'll get a little notice, you click on it and you'll join your group and just talk about, what does this mean? What is it that we're being called to in bearing witness in this way? Does that make sense? Is that okay? Okay, you got it. All right.
How long?
How long? What did we say? Like 15 minutes. Okay. Thank you.
So everyone stayed until the end in the small group and took this as a good sign.
Yeah, our group pretty much has it all figured out right now.
Oh, now you're making me curious.
Yeah, we've got it squared away. It's
awesome.
Yeah.
Good on you.
Linda, you didn't speak in our group. Linda, did you want to say something? That looks like.
Danger, danger. We've got it all figured out. Maybe not. But Monica,
I was waiting for that moment.
I am with you as you grieve. And very recently I had a day and I explained to my husband, don't worry, but I'm just very fragile today. If your heart can't be open unless it's cracked open, and that comes and goes, you know.
And it's a precious thing. It's a very precious thing.
It is. It is. And it goes against most of our training, my training, that it's really okay. We are perfect just the way we are. And it's like, oh, it doesn't feel like that. So I'm a work in progress. We all are.
Great. So Grace, you tempted us. Now you're gonna.
I guess my takeaway was that I can bear fragile witness. I can bear full witness. But by myself, often it is fragile. It's bearing fragile witness. And when our group was together today, what it felt, just this last group, what it felt like was a wanting to wanting to hold all of it, hold all of it together, to not do it alone, to not mourn alone, to feel the hearts as they were breaking, as they were cracking open. And knowing that we are part of the problem. We choose to be part of the problem. We're born into the problem. And yet we know there's a way to also stand in the renewal and to resist in the way that we best can in each moment. So, yeah, danger, danger. We have it all figured out. Something around that.
Great, great.
And if I may, it sounds like some sort of secular blasphemy, but I too am subject to resisting things, but I think I have to let go of that too.
I'm sorry, I say that again.
Resistance. Resisting. I think that's one more thing for me to let go of and accept, not like always, not appreciate always, but accept things are the way they are. And there's no trust without believing totally that the energy of the world is love. And I say that at the risk of sounding preachy or something, but it's just the word that works for me. The love is being able to hold someone, Monica, when we're not physically present. To be that open to deconstructing's the word you're using, and namaste is the word that I see in you and you see in me, and it's you got to let go. I have to let go of who I am totally and be willing in every moment to be here now and just be here. Maybe I'm only a thought form and it's somebody else's big major video, you know. I don't pretend that, but only my mother would say it's all okay. She knew what she was talking about.
Maybe I can add some words. It was in our small group when I felt sad, and I couldn't say why. It was just sadness, and I could share this, and all shared it with me, and that was really heartbreaking. That was not in a bad sense, but it opened my heart, and I think it was the heart of the group which opened. And I experienced it like this, and now just in this moment the sadness is gone. But whatever there is, if we can share this, maybe it is feeding the heart of the whole space.
That's beautiful, Monica, and I appreciate what you were saying also, Linda. I mean, when Alnor says that we need to think about things that go to the root of the difference, the resistance is about resisting the things that are the problem, in a sense, and not going against the problem, but finding like that in this world of war and conflict and so forth, the love, or the willingness to be heartbroken in strength, because we're taught, to avoid this or to push it away, or it's too much, or we can't do anything, we're just individuals, or we're responsible, and then you feel terrible. But it's like, can we come together in that heart place? And that already is a contradiction to the consciousness that creates the world that we're living in.
If I might, I heard my husband a week ago explain to my brother that you're thinking on this plane, and the explanation you're looking for is on this plane, and you can't understand that as long as you stay here. 2-dimensional, 3-dimensional, 5-dimensional, 10-dimensional. And the only thing in the moment that makes sense to me is that it's okay not to know. If I do not know, and I may never understand as completely as I wish to, but with the war and I'm living in a very chaotic, crazy country that's pretending everything is right and they're perfect. Well, that's strange. Some people that are in that much conflict realize they are.
Yeah, right.
So I choose to honor the broken heart, the openness. The bottom line for me is all is one. If I'm the wave in the ocean, if I'm the teardrop in the water of the world, that's my part, and it's no less important. But it's not the be all and the end all. It's to be here.
Andrew, did you also raise your hand?
Say?
And
thanks, Thomas. I love Al Noor, by the way. He's great, and when he talks about those contradictions that we have, a contradiction that's jumping out for me is I have a sort of obsession with we spaces. I'm really fascinated with being inside them, but there's a way in which I need to get off of my agenda around them too, and sort of step back and be more playful with that whole dimension of me, and be willing to accept the ordinariness of it and the ordinariness of life, and to be there and to be willing to play that, enter into the we space game and play that, but also to be enjoying being outside of it as well. So there's a sense of detachment from this new normal, which is our we-space exploration. This is becoming a new normal for me and many of my peers. We're doing this on a daily basis or many hours a week. But to have a detachment from it and accept it as a new normal is something that's exciting me.
Great. Yeah, Valerie.
Yes, I really think is great, and it touched a key point in the transition for me, that until I don't realize my incapacity to solve, until I realize that my thinking, the one that I have been trained in, is not working anymore, I won't be able to move in action. And it's like, basically for me, it's like, until I don't realize that I can't make it, I won't be able to make it. So this huge paradox, and it goes through what we experience in our little group, is to accept my my full humanity. Full humanity meaning that I am also part of Daesh. I am also part of Trump. I am also part in all the terrorists and all the barbarian, that because I am human, I have that in me, and in the system with it I'm living, I intricately linked to that. So for me, it took me a while actually to get this concept of, yes, I am a Kubali, and the last year, like in November, and as distract as it could be, they forget that identity card before having killing people. But anyway, that means they're human, and in this craziness, I connect. And until I don't accept that, I can't, or until I can't accept that what we experience, like the sadness of the collective, of what is made to the earth. If I don't dare bearing witness to this sadness, I won't get the kickoff from this connection, because I'm doing it with other people, I guess. It's and also what I want to add is that it's I think it's a way to allow people to also accept it, because when we have the solution, like certain movement, like we know this, it should be like that, we shouldn't do this or we shouldn't do that, then either people are agree or not agree. If we're just coming as, I don't know, I'm certainly responsible also, whatever I don't want, but this is the way it is, I'm also responsible and I'm powerless, I think it mirrors actually the solution in the other, or the identification that, oh, maybe I don't need to know it all to do something. So it's very generous to what he's saying, like to really embrace that our darkness is very generous to us, but to the others, I feel.
Yeah. Then again, what you're doing is you're going to the root of the separation and saying, no, I'm not separate.
Yeah.
And if that is one of the deepest roots in our society that creates this that sets us up for conflict. And I want to shift now to our last video, which is from Aunkh Chabalala. And Aunkh is going to lead us in a meditation on to see the world as it is in its conflict. And it's I think it's a very powerful meditation that he leads. He asks us to be hawks or eagles flying over the world, and he will point out the dark side of what's there. And I ask, you know, to be grounded in what we've been speaking about, and to know that we're here together. You know, close your eyes and take in what he's saying, and then we'll come together and speak about it. Okay?
Good.
Or a hawk by day or an owl by night, because we're going to take a journey of witnessing the impact of inequality. But this journey is also the beginning in your own life of sacred activism, because I trust that after this journey, you'll be able to, something will be stirred within you, and you'll be able to join others all around the planet without considering their race or their class or their creed, their gender, their age, and simply see them as living entities. And this will involve minerals, animals, plants, microorganisms, because we are all this.
Yes.
So imagine wherever you are as the center of the planet. Doesn't really matter where you are, we are told the planet is round. So you are the center of the planet, and you're going to fly to the southern realms of the planet. Maybe you may choose to fly into Africa, to southern, sub-Saharan Africa. I invite you to fly above the villages and witness the scourge of inequality. Witness an old woman alone, desolate, with no one to support her because her children were killed in war. War over resources, over gold, silver, and platinum. Further down, displaced nations living in squalor with no dignity, ravaged by disease, cholera, Ebola, and the like. But also realize that you have actually participated in this. You have actually allowed this to take place in the 21st century, where we're supposed to be at the pinnacle of human evolution. I invite you to go deeper and witness the conflict over resources, brother killing brother just across the river. We all know, we all have seen the training of what's happening to our African brothers and sisters in North Africa, where men are being sold at the auction blocks for silver and gold, where women, young girls, are going to be turned into sex slaves one nation against another because one feels they are more equal than another, they are more superior than another, and another with wealth has the power to then purchase another human being for their subjugation. We have all contributed to this. We have all participated in the perpetuation of this evil. Now I'll invite you to fly over the waters to the eastern realms. You may choose to go through India, Thailand, Japan, China, Iraq, Iran, the Middle and Far East. Witness the personification of deception, where deception is the order of the day, where fear and intimidation rules the hearts of men and women and children, where everyone is oppressed, where everyone plays an important role in deception, in corruption, but are actually paralyzed by wars and rumors of wars, still over resources, over the wealth that the planet has actually given us all for us to share. Take a break and fly over the northern realms, across Eastern Europe into Western Europe, and witness the greed, the arrogance, the materialism, the bigotry, and the destruction that all these things have caused on the human conscience, torn families, and how greed has actually brought suffering into those parts of the world. And realize that all this we are all responsible for. We have allowed our governments, we have allowed the multinationals to use, abuse, and refuse to exploit the meek and the marginalized. And finally, I invite you to fly over into the Western Hemisphere, where ignorance and self-concertedness, where foolishness has actually materialized itself into violence, violent rhetoric, where governments are no longer protecting people. Governments are actually the biggest terrorists, tearing apart individuals, tearing apart families and communities, tearing apart nations, corrupting nations from within. All these are the impacts of inequality. And when it comes to sacred activism, I would like us to realize that that which created us put in us the potential to shift, to transmute all this. The power to change all this doesn't necessarily lie out there. It's all within. It only takes our consciousness, but also our resolve, day by day, to do something to reverse the impact of inequality. I have this experience in my work where I use indigenous knowledge systems, the ancient wisdoms of ancient Africa, interfacing this with modern science and technology in such a way that that old lady that was actually kicked out, excluded from participating in creating her own wealth by the apartheid government of this country, but also the corrupt government of the current government, which is also corrupt just as it is everywhere in the world, where these elders that have never set foot at school can actually sit with professors and discuss knowledge, because knowledge is knowledge, regardless of where it's coming from. And in the process, co-create or give birth to new knowledge, new products, but also new processes that then shift their socioeconomic status, where they can participate in knowledge economy, and as a result, we call them barefoot professors. I feel we can do this. All of us, we can do this all at once, wherever we are. So I invite you to be a sacred activist by simply flying back. As you're flying back to the center, returning to your center, to the core, that you have witnessed all this, but now I want you to just breathe in and really breathe out hope. Breathe out your authentic awareness that yes, there is this evil on the planet. However, we have the power to transmute all this. So I invite you to breathe out this authentic awareness that all over the planet we experience peace. Because wherever there is peace, definitely there will be justice. And when we are just, we are equal. There will be equity and there will be equality. I'd like you to breathe out unity, celebrate the diversity of this planet. Breathe out knowledge, because from knowledge we are able to decimate this inequality. We become empowered, and as a result, we enter a state of renewal where we have new eyes, new ways of perceiving reality, new ways of seeing, and as a result, new way of being. With a new way of being, we're able, therefore, to realize that there are those who have less, there are those who don't have. So this becomes a challenge, but also an impetus for us to give more, to love more, to share. And the more we share is the more we render the planet just. And the more the planet is just is the more we render it free. We free it from the shackles of inequality, poverty, and hunger. We free it from war and conflict. We free it from disease that we're not supposed to even suffer from in this time. Therefore, we bring about joy and pleasure and bliss, where we can dance again, where children can actually experience what it means to be happy, to be content. And it's easier from that space for us to give gratitude, to be joyful, to be thankful. And wherever we are thankful, it's easy for us to transform into something we've never been, to become members of a new humanity, a humanity that is vital, a humanity that is able to create an equal world, a humanity which has the consideration, but also the conscience that, yes, indeed, we are one people, regardless of where we come from, regardless of the boxes they have tried to put us in, regardless of the concepts like race which they created in order to box us, regardless of our gender and age, regardless of our achievements and acquisitions. If each one of us can just simply realize this, I trust that within us, a spark for us to act, to know that there is something that needs doing today with immediacy, with such agency, will actually be aroused. Thank you so much. It was indeed a pleasure to share with you, and I trust this has actually opened a new way, a new door for you to participate and contribute towards the creation of wealth for all, but also towards the total dissolving of that which perpetuates inequality.
Responses?
I believe this is the way the world is changing.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it continued what we were sharing. I really like the trip, and that it started to drive us through our darkness, and then because it drove us through the darkness, it could make us come back to the light. And what I hear, and I really convinced of that, is that the transformation and the just the proper way, the just, the correct way, the proper way,
Yeah.
just is coming from joy. And and once again, I really believe that going down to our darkness together make us connect through our open humanity, and from that instantly joy is coming, and then we know what to do.
And it's because the togetherness already holds the hope and the life and the new world.
It's organic, I feel. It's organic, yes. Life is organic. And what we do is a organic thing together.
Any other comments? Seemed to be a beautiful kind of wrapping up of the whole afternoon or morning, depending on where you are. And Grace had to leave, so just so you know.
I just want to show you something. You know, I cook, and sometimes there is some rest, and I can't eat all. And I don't know if you see. So this is a cabbage cut by 2. And after 3 days, a little thing came, and it's 5 days now. And and I was like, fuck, you know, this is, if this is not hope.
That's great.
That's amazing.
There it is. There it is. The unknown.
Yeah.
Bringing life.
Thanks for the picture. It goes beyond the words.
Yeah. Yeah. Great.
There's something also about Aunk's heart, because he's as you said, he's going with us through the darkness, but he always is walking with his heart, and he's basically with his heart connecting with us, and that's all of the difference. And somehow what came to me, and I just bring it in because that's how it showed up for me. I connected with Monica with your comment about the sadness, because there's something where with the journey that he brought us through, there is the sadness connected to that, but you feel his strength to just hold it, to not do anything with it, to hold it and to respond the way he responds. And there's such a beauty coming out of it, because you see he's not denying anything, and he's also not blaming. I find it very interesting when he went to Europe and the way he described the greed and everything from Europe, but the way he did, he made the point explicitly how this is like everyone. And to have this capacity to do that, I think so much is dependent on that. So, Linda, when you said this is the answer, or this is, I can connect with that, because I think it needs a heart like this to be together and find a response to that. Just find a response. We don't know the responses, but find it. But the way he does it, for me, shows the way.
I also think that to come together in that, and because we all, maybe we're not all as have the heart that Aunkh has. I think we all do, but we may not be able to access that sometimes. And to be together in this, in this heart field, actually enables us to find that strength and to experience that strength together, which to me gives me hope.
Much hope. And he also previously, when I heard him speak through you, your organization, he said, you know, and even today he mentioned the plants, the micro, macro, minerals, the formless spirits. And that's when we become the little ants crawling around the surface of the globe and forget that there's everything else, and there it is, you know, all.
It's interesting, and we've come out of all of that organic process, that we're not something that was just plunked down. We've come out of this world, the oxygen that the plants have created. We've come out of that. We're in such a deep relationship with every living, that this entire biosphere, that we're the eyes and ears and movement of, and can, you know, our capacity to honor that is a another piece of this being together, even beyond just us as human beings.
Monica,
Okay.
do you have one last thing to say?
Who are you calling on?
Monica.
Monica.
I
Oh,
see
okay.
her on my screen being so quiet.
It's not so easy to find words now. We dive very deep into what Aunkh said, and I feel through all the sadness and all what is going on, we dived into the source, and that's what I feel in my heart now. The source, which is amazing, growing through my heart, through our heart, and yes, maybe that's what I can say now.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I think we should wrap up now. And just want to remind everyone that we are doing this out of the gift economy as a gift, and as a gift, it means we are genuinely offering this, and we also appreciate your gift in response, as if you are able. That help. It's not that we're doing this because we have an excess, but we're doing it because we believe in bringing this forward in this way. So thank you. And next month we will be doing One World, bearing witness to bearing witness, speaking about the power of human consciousness to reflect, to bear witness to the different dimensions of life on this planet. And I hope you'll join us and bring friends. And thank you for being here. Thank you for being.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you would like to stay on, Valerie just said she needs to leave, but if you would like to stay on and speak with each other, we will leave the line open so that you can talk.
You can talk as long as you want. We leave the room open, and whoever needs and wants to leave, it's great to be with you. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
I'm going to. It was great to see you all.